Up next, to take on the winning streak, Wycombe Wanderers visit Portman Road. Welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. I've got a confession to make, Seb. I know I founded this podcast. Sometimes I've been a little bit like, oh, I've got to go and do the podcast tonight. What the hell am I going to say? I bounded down the stairs. At the moment, I am joyful to talk about Ipswich Town. Seb, how are you?
I'm all right, mate. Who'd have thought that just being really good and winning every week would make things more enjoyable? I remember coming on these. Do you remember the post during the COVID season when it was all behind closed doors and we'd see an evening game with no fans in the ground? We'd lose 3-0 to Northampton or Wimbledon or somebody, and we had to come and sit on these shows and try and think of something to say for an hour to entertain people. Yeah, we've done the slog, and I think this is the rewards, isn't it?
Yeah, some of them were absolutely brutal. You've made football fans sound very selfish there. It's like, all you have to do is win 7 games in a row, not concede any goals, spend loads of money on, have better players than everyone else in the league, and you'll be happy. Seb, you wanted to check in on the last 8 ahead, or rather post the Flagship show at the weekend. Where do you want to go with that particular conversation?
Just want to get your thoughts. Obviously, me, Dave, and Rich were on the Flagship on Sunday night. I think I managed to convince Dave that we were going to win the league, so I think he came around to the same thinking as me. Rich, there was no turning him. He kept trying to kind of make us, step back a little bit and be a bit more considered, maybe. But I just wonder what your take on it was. Obviously, it's 8 clean sheets on the bounce, 7 wins on the bounce, so wins away at 2 of the probably hardest games we'll play this season against potentially playoff rivals. Everything's amazing. Upward trajectory is amazing. Everything's green on all the form guides. Just wondering what your thoughts were on the 4 sides going for the top 2 at the moment.
It's very difficult to control your brain in this situation. And by that, I mean, if I'm analysing a league that Ipswich aren't involved in, I'm probably looking at this going, Ipswich are coming like an absolute train. Look at their trajectory. Look at where Sheffield Wednesday are. And I was at the Pizza Cup final, and to say Plymouth shat the bed is an understatement. They absolutely phoned that one in. So we don't know how that's going to affect them. If I were neutral, I suspect I would be saying, oh, have a look at Ipswich there. Look at the direction of travel of everybody. I think being a fan, well, you tell me, does being a fan, it's a bit like the nepotism thing, that you're actually harder on your son or daughter if they work for you than you would be. So maybe does being a fan, do you overcorrect? Are you almost too harsh on your team? Because that's the part of me, the fan says, blah, 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 blah. Ipswich, blah, blah, blah. They always let you down. 20 years of nothingness, 1 promotion since 1992 or whatever. Does that make you do that? Because I would say from the outside, well, put it this way. If I'm doing League 2 and I'm speaking to a Stockport fan, I'm like, oh, I fancy you guys to make the run into the top 3. If I'm speaking to a Luton fan, I'm like, well, why not? You can sneak up in there into the top 2, can't you? Why not? Whereas, being an Ipswich fan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all scarred, aren't we? Haven't fans gone and spoken to Ashton and explained how scarred we are over the last kind of 20 years? And I guess there is still that nagging doubt in the back of your head that traditionally we don't tend to get nice things as Ipswich fans. But I mean, I went to Bolton, I saw the scenes at full time. I went to Derby and saw the scenes at full time. I had a full day of stuff planned for Friday, 2 days time. We're recording this on Wednesday night. I had a full day of things planned for Friday, which I promptly cancelled everything on Monday. And I'm now going to go back for the day to see the Wycombe game, because it's just a wave we have to ride at the moment, I guess. I know what you're saying. You're overly critical of your own team. You have that doom and gloom of your own team based on previous experiences. And like you said, anybody else looking from the outside. Do you remember the year when Villa got promoted? And didn't they win something crazy like 10, 11 on the bounce?
They won 10 on the trot.
Yeah, to finish in the playoffs. Can I point out
they had Jack Grealish, Tammy Abraham and Tyrone Mings in the Championship? But Seb, we've got £2 million fullbacks and £1 million Welsh international playing off the front now. So maybe the levels.
I had a mate at the time, and I was saying to him, "You'll win the playoffs because it's momentum. You know, you'll finish in the playoffs, and the wave will carry you through." And he was saying at the time, "Oh, I'm not sure. You know, we've always got in us to mess things up a little bit," and they just didn't. And hopefully now we're in that kind of scenario where we'll tick off the games week by week. If we win our game in hand, it's back in our hands now. If we win the game in hand, obviously we're back in the autos, and hopefully this wave will continue to build, and we can have an amazing end to the season for the first time in 20 years or so.
I know we say you should never do this, but if you did it also, this is another argument. If you did it purely on the data, you've got us getting in the top 2, haven't you? Literally everything, XG4, XG against, possession, shot counts, everything is, you see Ipswich at the top of all these. And to be fair, I know we've been at the top of those rankings for much of the season, frankly, too, haven't we? So there you go, you could do it like that. We're expecting a bit of a bumper crowd for this Barnsley game, Seb. I said the other day, I've got a ticket. If it's all over by then, I'm not going. I'll just sit at home in a grump and lose my money. But yeah, I think they do sort of 60% strip of that huge away end. It looks like they're opening up the other half as well. Sorry, other 40%.
Another couple of thousand tickets released. And I'm quite surprised that Barnsley have done that, because it could be a big game. And, we've seen in the past when sides will try and cut back, give the minimum allocation that you can to try and give yourselves a little bit of a home advantage. Yeah, fair play to them. It's a very decent thing to do, because that could be absolutely massive. That could be
Seb,
the two of us shooting
Sorry
it out.
To interrupt. I was there for Barnsley Sheffield Wednesday, and of course it's very local for Sheffield Wednesday, but brilliant. Whole away end, completely ram-packed full, and it does make a difference. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing atmosphere. It could be the shootout, couldn't it? It could be winner takes all with regards to the autos, with 2 games to play each after that. So it could be a huge game. Fair play for releasing the extra tickets. And 5,000. That must be the biggest away following apart from MK this season, surely, to get 5,000. Derby felt very busy on Saturday, but that was only 3,000. So you're talking another 40% on top of that. So that will be an amazing away day. Games under the lights towards the end of the season are always good as well. So yeah, can't wait for that one. Really looking forward to it.
They start in daylight, don't they, and gradually get dark. Oh, I got a little shiver up my spine thinking about it then. The only thing is certain playoff games I remember starting in the light, and they would generally be at Portman Road, the evening game in the playoffs. So, yeah, a few bad memories there. We have nominations for Manager and Player of the Month. Kieran McKenna has been nominated, of course. Wade Elliott, Mark Jackson, Stephen Schumacher. Can I have a rant and make a sermon on the mount, please, Seb?
Are you going to mention the manager's curse?
That's exactly what I'm going to mention. The Manager of the Month curse is a coping mechanism invented by football supporters, because the winner of the Manager of the Month is being rewarded for an above average performing month. What happens after an above average performing month is that you regress to the mean. You do not get worse. You've just gone from your best month of the season, probably, back to normal, okay? Kieran McKenna will likely win the Manager of the Month award. It is not a curse. Winning streaks do not last forever. Are you singing from the same hymn sheet as me here, Seb?
No, it's a curse. It's a scientific. It's a proven curse. There is no logic behind it. Your logic does not make any sense. It's definitely supernatural beings at work. And he's definitely going to win, obviously, as well.
He's going to win it because they've won every game. So
yeah, was it 4 in the month? I think no goals conceded. Obviously, Christian Walton's been nominated for the Player of the Season, Player of the Month as well, alongside Alfie May at Cheltenham, Jay Stansfield at Exeter, and Joe Ward at Peterborough. So
give that. Was Alfie May's double against Peterborough?
Yes.
I'll give Alfie May should win.
Yeah, but Walton saved a penalty at Bolton. He's not let a goal in. Surely he's in with a great shout.
Yeah, they don't give it to both.
It's a goalkeeper though, isn't it? It's not as sexy as someone smashing the ball in from the halfway line like May did at London Road, is it? So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it'll go to Alfie May.
Yeah, and dare I say, we'll get onto this in the accounts reports coming out. There'll be an argument that playing up front and scoring braces for Cheltenham is a lot more difficult than playing in goal for Ipswich at the moment. It's not a pop at Walton, but that's why I think that they might go with Alfie May. I don't know if that's a reasonable thing. The moment some of us have been dreading, possibly in terms of our inboxes clicking from our friends at Bristol City, but the accounts have come out, Seb.
And as we probably expected, it was always so interesting to see exactly, the pound note figure behind all the investment and all the chat. As we're recording this at the moment on Wednesday night, the fans live forum is going on, and O'Leary and Ashton and McKenna are sat there in the club streaming it on YouTube, and they're talking about it as well. But we've heard for 2 years now. It's pretty much 2 years next week since the takeover, and obviously accounts come out a year in the past. This takes us up to the end of June last summer, and obviously we've heard for so long about all the infrastructure being put in, all the improvements at both the training ground and at Portman Road. We've seen the stuff on the pitch, we've seen the stuff in the squad and the backroom teams going from sort of poor Lee O'Neill juggling 72 jobs at once to suddenly having all these different department heads.
Thanks for getting the mention.
Structures beneath them. So it was really interesting to see the top line figure of what that looks like on paper. And my overall kind of feeling was it's about right. I'm not concerned about it personally. I quite like the stuff that they had with regards to the player trading to show with the money in versus the money out. It's not exactly like it's a huge deficit. A lot of clubs will see our spend, especially in January, where you're thinking we probably spent £3.5 million on players and a hefty loan wages contribution for George Hurst. But if you look at the trading aspect of the Zell, the Downs deals, the players that we've moved on and the relevant sell-on clauses since then those kind of things hopefully are balancing out to relatively low. What I did like was the commercial income had gone through the roof. We kind of always say we're a bit of an untapped resource.
Does that include Ed Sheeran sponsorship? I don't know.
It will include the sponsorship. I don't know if it will include the shirts. I can't remember what date the shirt sales came out, because we've sold something crazy like 50,000 shirts, haven't we? I know we get a set cut from the manufacturer, but it would include his sponsorship because that was announced I think it was just before the takeover. So that's sort of summer 21. So it's the first season of the Ed Sheeran kind of sponsorship. But yeah, the commercial aspect of it I thought was really interesting because it had shot up dramatically. Under Evans, we kind of used to say he was a tickets guy who was great at putting on large events, and he never kind of looked to milk. So what's the term? Sweat the asset. He never looked to sweat the assets that he had at Portman Road, whereas the current guys are clearly doing that much, much better. So it's not a surprise that we've obviously, lost a load of money. We have to be wary that we're in League One. So with the kind of money we're paying for players, both wages and transfer fees, there comes expectations with that. And they were very open in the accounts, weren't they? They said this will remain a loss-making entity until we get promoted to the Championship. And be honest, probably in that league we will lose money as well. It's just it's just the way it's going to be for now. The pension fund are incredibly smart people. They'll have short, medium, and long-term kind of risks and projections. We're clearly a very, very long-term strategy for them. We know they're fairly liquid from their cash position, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Nothing concerning came out, but maybe we should kind of acknowledge it and kind of show a bit of respect to the sides around us that yes, we have this incredible advantage and we are very, very fortunate to be in this position.
I just really want to echo your last point, and the word I was going to use is humility, because we've been on the other side, and I've been on this podcast year after year moaning on about parachute payments when we're in the Championship and relegated teams receiving 5 times more broadcast money, which then went into the books as good money on FFP. And it felt like the rules essentially were, okay, we've got this rich owner. Forget the fact that he was at that point unwilling to actually spend the money. We've got this rich owner. He couldn't spend the money if he wanted to, only up to the £13 million losses. And then you see Fulham, £90 million wage bill to win the champion. 90 million, which let's make an educated guess will be 6 times more than our wage bill will be in League One. Not this set of accounts. This is me hazarding a guess on what will come in that we've spent on salary this year that will be revealed obviously next year. And I just get very fed up, Seb, and even talking to Burnley fans at the moment. And don't get me wrong, Burnley fans are presented with idiots going, you're only top because you've got more money than everyone else. And whilst it is true that they have more access to funds, okay, they've sold, Cornet and Nick Pope, whoever. I think the point people miss, and your humility comment and respect comment is what does that look like for the other teams you're up against? And I just think if you're an Ipswich fan at the moment, you can acknowledge that the operational procedures look good, way better. It looks like the money's being spent well. Don't get caught up on, transfer out was this and transfer in was this. I think the key thing is to have the respect for when you're going against Cheltenham to acknowledge your Accrington, whoever, that resource-wise, we are in this division like a parachute team in the Championship or like a Champions League team in the Premier League. And I love what they're doing with it. I think it's joined up thinking, it's being spent well. But I just feel, and I feel I'm being very preachy today, Seb, and people are going to give me a load of stick on Twitter, which I probably deserve. I just feel we need to have balance and respect for our opponents in League One and acknowledge we have spent well, we have got a good manager, we do play good football, but we are clearly better resourced than 90% of the league. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. We have to acknowledge we've got this head start on pretty much everybody else. Like you said, we were in the Championship year after year where we saw these crazy, ridiculous parachute teams who had,
playoff
wages.
Semi-final, Seb, 14-15.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, didn't Norwich have the biggest wage bill of any Championship side ever at one point? I'm not sure if it was that year.
Newcastle beat it like the next year, didn't they? Or
we do have to we kind of have to accept that we've been in the position of the Fleetwoods, the Accringtons, the Cheltenhams. We've been one of the smaller fry, so to speak, in the league above, and we kind of punched above our weight for a little bit when Mick kept us competitive, and it was incredibly frustrating every week to kind of be talking about who we're playing on a Saturday, and they've got a striker on 30-40 grand a week that we just simply could compete nowhere near. So yeah, it's great for us. We do have to kind of acknowledge that it is there. It's a massive boost, a massive head start. It does bring pressure because obviously that with the money spent and the infrastructure improvements, there is an expectation certainly amongst the fan base that that will naturally lead to promotion. It doesn't always. We have to bear that in mind. However, at the moment things are looking pretty good, but we do have this massive head start on pretty much all of the league, I would suggest. Yeah,
and to round that out, a general point, I think in life when you do have an advantage, you sound more of a dick if you don't acknowledge it than if you do. And the worst thing you can do is pretend that it's not there or something like that would be my take. Should we talk about Wycombe Wanderers coming up at the weekend, Seb?
Yes, let's. Obviously, we one of the old enemies a little bit. I had this fear. I remember during our bad run of form, I was really worried we were going to finish third and they were going to finish sixth. And obviously, Ainsworth would just school us and they would absolutely shithouse a victory in the first leg of the playoffs, like they did last year to MK. And
31 shots in that second leg, MK.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be able to cope with it. But obviously, things have changed for both clubs quite dramatically in the last kind of 6 weeks or so.
Well, would you like to hear from someone from the Wycombe end, Seb? What we'll do, I spoke with Phil Catchpole earlier, who is the commentator for Wycombe and the face of Wycombe TV. So what we'll do, it's about 10 minutes long. So we'll put it up here on the screen. You'll be able to hear it on the podcast. And Seb, if you want to interject at any point on anything Phil said, we'll roll in. So this is Phil Catchpole, Wycombe Wanderers commentator. Special treat here on the Blue Monday preview show. I am with the match day commentator and the face of Wycombe TV, Phil Catchpole. Phil, how you doing, sir?
I'm very well. Very much looking forward to coming to Portman Road again.
Excellent. So I've got so many questions. We won't go chapter and verse. When we look at Wycombe, we looked at this talismanic manager dragging them to heights that they've never previously been, and a very, very good number 10, who a lot of League One were watching. I'm talking about Gareth Ainsworth. I'm talking about Anis Mehmeti. Neither of them are going to be at Portman Road. Talk to me about how their absence changes the Wycombe side Ipswich faced in December.
It doesn't massively, to be honest with you. It's a huge miss, Anis Mehmeti. We'll do the player first. Anis was a wonderful player, a player that we've seen grow and develop into, I think, one of the best players or what was one of the best players in League One. Gareth Ainsworth taught him the ugly side of the game that enabled him to go and do all the great things that he can do. And he was doing those consistently and has earned his move, and it's great to see him in the Championship. But, we've got other options in there, and I think he was very well supported when he was here in terms of the system we played and the players that we've got. Chem Campbell's come in. It was told at the time not a direct replacement. He signed the day before that Anis left. A lot of fans put two and two together and saw them and go, right, well, there's the direct replacement. Chem's a really exciting player. He's got 6 Premier League appearances under his belt for Wolves before coming here. And again, I think maybe Wolves saw what we did with Anis and go, right, we need Chebney to better that. So he's sort of learnt quite a lot with us, but he's also put in some really good displays as well, scored a couple of goals, and he's a decent player. So he's given us another option there, and he's a different player to Anis as well. So I think the element of surprise, whereas a lot of teams we saw coming to Adams Park on away games were setting up to kind of combat Anis Vermetti. So in a way, it's almost become a little bit easier because it means that teams have had to go, right, hold on a minute. They play a little bit differently. Although we're not getting it quite so much now, but under Gareth Ainsworth, it was always the pre-match manager chat bingo of we know what we're going to get. We know it's going to be hard. We know we've got to work really hard and all these other bits, which I've always thought did Gareth Ainsworth a bit of a disservice, if I'm brutally honest. But I think other managers are now having to analyse us a bit more. Under Matt Bloomfield, we're playing a bit more football. We're certainly approaching the final third in a slightly different way, a bit more nuanced. But I think in terms of the spirit, and that was the core part of Wycombe Wanderers under Gareth Ainsworth, that remains absolutely intact. I was up here when the day that Gareth left, and 45 minutes later, Matt Bloomfield walks in. The players didn't know what was going on. As soon as he was announced, the buzz around the place was incredible, because they knew Matt, the player, they knew Matt, the coach, and they'd seen how well he did at Colchester, and they were so delighted that they saw it as a continuation of that spirit, and that's still there. They're still run through brick walls. So there isn't that many differences really. Matt, I think his challenge is that he wants to be his own man. Of course he does, everybody does, and they've got their own ways. And he comes in a very unique situation as a manager. Normally you come in a window or at the start of the season or whatever, and you get a bit of a project. He's come in, the project is up and running, the project's almost over, and he's in a really good position. And it's unusual for a manager to get that opportunity. But he was the only option for Wycombe in terms of what he offered us, in terms of continuity, the love for the club, the relationship with the fans and everything else. And yeah, it's wonderful to see that we were able to get that done, because someone coming in from the outside would have really struggled, I think. Whereas with Matt, we've got the best of both worlds. We've got the continuity, but we've also got a really exciting young manager who's really highly thought of in the game, who's done a really good short spell at Colchester, but made a big difference there. But to answer your question, I don't think we're going to see much difference between the Wycombe that would have been there in another sliding doors parallel universe with Anis and Gareth there on Good Friday than we would with under Matt. We've got a few injuries and stuff and a few other things that he's had to deal with, but we've adapted really well and continue to do so.
So as a fan of a team that's on a winning streak, it's very rare for Ipswich, and you're kind of wondering, okay, when's the winning streak going to end? How does it feel travelling there? 7 straight wins, 8 straight clean sheets. I hope it does. Does that put the fear of God up you?
It does on one side, but the other side of the coin is that these runs have to come to an end at some point. And, it's not often you get to sort of a team that can do 8, 9, 10 consecutive victories. So you look at the probability of it and think, well, they can't win them all. And I know the neutrals, like a lot of my mates who support other teams in League One and the Premier League, will be looking at their long list at the weekend, and they'll see a stubborn little awkward Wycombe away at Ipswich, and they might look to try and add a bit of value into their accumulator this weekend. Might well fancy us because we're that sort of team. We did it to you in December. No one fancied us to beat you back then, and we did.
You did?
Yeah, we did. And I think that may well play its part on Friday, because I know what the crowd are like at Portman Road. They're going to be fired up because they'll remember that game in December. So that might play into your hands a bit. But yeah, we don't really fear anyone in this division because of what's happened in the last 3 or 4 years. We've been told you can dream and your dreams can come true. We've experienced it. So yeah, we'll travel down the motorway. I'm sure that fans will be thinking, do you know what? If we get beat, no one's going to really sort of make a big deal of it. But if we win, and we might, then it'll be a great day.
So I would imagine Wycombe's success at Portman Road at the weekend would kind of be based on, the things that we've complimented Wycombe on before, stopping the Ipswich flow of passing, maybe sitting a little deeper, letting them have the ball around the back and quickly kind of striking, good set plays, good game management, use whatever words you're comfortable with. We think it would look like that. Is that how you would see Matt Bloomfield approaching it? And the general question, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when you look at what you've got available to you at Ipswich, I think stopping that is a big thing. I think taking you on at your own game would be tricky, given the respective tools that we've got available to each other. Set pieces have always been key for Wycombe Wanderers, and I think any team in League One would say it. And I think you guys have learnt that this season as well. Is you can't pass your way out of this division entirely. There comes that period where you've got to grind them out, and I think Plymouth have been really good at that this season. That's what they learnt last season when they came unstuck. So I think with Wycombe, you have to earn the right to beat them. I've always said that when we play the bigger teams. If Ipswich roll in to their home turf and think, right, this is a 3 points, we're on a great run of form, we'll just pass these guys to death, see you later. You may well do that, but in able to do that, you've got to put the yards in. And Wycombe will work their socks off, and that's the same from under Gareth and to under Matt Bloomfield. They will always do that. And I think we might try and spring a surprise. We'll see what happens, but you'll be a settled side, I'd imagine, after 7 straight wins. That may well play into our hands or one of your future opponents' hands as well, when they try and find out where your Achilles heel now exists. But yeah, I think we'll work our socks off. And, if we do get that first goal, you know what happens. So we'll see. But to answer your final question was, what do I see happening? I think we go there under a bit of pressure because of where we are in the table and with the amount of games we've got coming of what we've got left. This is by far and away, I think, our toughest fixture of our running. But although we do have some teams down at the bottom who are, backed into a corner, so they could be volatile games as well. But I think we look at this game and I think if we can get something from it, we'll be really, really happy. But we drew at home to MK Dons down the bottom of the table. It'd be very, very Wycombe for us to then go and follow that up by beating you guys at Portman Road.
Tremendous. I must just ask before you go, and I don't want to throw you under the bus because I know you're good friends with Gareth Ainsworth, but what's been your take on QPR? Because it looks like he's got an absolute hospital pass of a job there, and it's not going well. It may not be entirely his fault, but it looks like a difficult one to solve. And answer how you see fit, what's been your take looking at Gareth and QPR?
I've always said, and I think a lot of Wycombe fans would agree with me on this, wherever Gareth went from here, a lot of Wycombe fans would follow that team a little bit as well. And I've got no allegiances to QPR, but I knew it was a basket case. But I also know the hallmarks of what makes a successful Gareth Ainsworth team. Listen, he nearly took us down in his first full season because he was learning the ropes. But one of the unique things about Gareth was when he survived that, and he survived that through his positivity and by his just pure grit and determination. When he survived, he came back and was like, this cannot happen again. And he was big enough to admit his errors and learn. And he continually does that. He's one of the most humble managers I think I've ever spoken to. So if I was a QPR fan who may be thinking, what on earth is going on? I would say that the problems lie deeper than the current manager. I think the problems that they've got financially, I think he's the man to get them out of the problems they've got, because he's about your team spirit and about your leadership. And I feel a little bit sorry for him. He's got a bit hung out to dry on this sort of Maori guy coming in and doing, every time they lose, that little gift's doing the rounds. Listen, that guy came up here at the Wycombe Wanderers training ground, and it's phenomenal what happened there. And it's a really clever thing to do, because you work out immediately in the room who's on your side and who isn't. If I'm in a fight, who do I want next to me? And that's what that exercise does. And at the moment, it's just being used as a bit of fluff, and they're taking the pee out of him a little bit for it. But that is instructed to what's going to go on there in the summer, I believe. If he gets a transfer window or two under his belt, QPR fans will see a very different competitive side. They might not pass the life out of the Championship, but they'll start winning games again, which I think any QPR fan would take at the moment, because the run of form they're on is dreadful. I think they'll stay up. because he'll find a way. He's a great man. Stick with him. He's the man for QPR. Absolutely.
Brilliant stuff, Phil. If any of our Blue Monday listeners want to follow you on Twitter and just kind of check in over the weekend, because you're at all the Wycombe games and commentating and doing all the background stuff, quite a good follow. So do you want to just give your Twitter a quick plug?
I'm at Blunt Phil and at WWFC official as well, but at Blunt Phil's me. And yeah, I'll be posting from Portman Road if you want to see the other angle. If we win, maybe don't go on it after 5 o'clock.
Phil,
always welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us, Phil.
Nice one, mate. A pleasure.
There you go, Seb. That was Phil Catchpole, the Wycombe Wanderers commentator. And it's always difficult when you speak to someone that actually works for the other club, because they can, they're not like us. We can say what the hell we want. Okay, there might be some consequences, but it doesn't affect our ability to put food on the table, does it? But what was your take on what Phil had to say on the state of things at Wycombe, at Bloomfield, and what we can expect?
Really interesting, wasn't it? Yeah, really interesting to hear the kind of the inside the camp view. Obviously, we know them as being, a side very much kind of moulded. Angels was there for, was it nearly 10 years, 11 years, maybe a caretaker spell, then he gets the job kind of full time, 2013-ish. So we've played against, Wycombe a few times. We've come back down to this level. We kind of know what to expect from them. Personally, it wasn't never the kind of football that I like to see. The kind of the they must have the lowest ball in play kind of stats in the league. We'll come on to a few of their stats shortly about how they kind of approach games, and it's interesting to see what Bloomfield will do with them. I liked what he said about it being both a continuity employment, bringing him across from Colchester, but also keeping the kind of looking to maybe evolve things and tweak things slightly moving forward. He did a brilliant job at Colu, didn't he? I mean, was it 9 wins, I think, from his 27 games in charge there? I can't profess to be.
Can I just throw in the caveat? There was a big spend.
The window, yeah.
Window.
Yeah,
now, I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing that in as a. They were right down the bottom, and them and Gillingham spent a ton of money in January, and coincided with some of the wins, not all of them. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he had a couple of months, didn't he, before that? I think he went in start of October, end of September time. He had a couple of months to kind of bed in, but he still produced some pretty decent results out the back. They were in the relegation zone. They were struggling. They were in a pretty bad place when he took over, and he kind of stabilised them, and they have kind of dropped off a little bit since he's moved on. They've tanked again, and they're now finding themselves back in and amongst the scraps. So it'll be really interesting to see what he does. Interesting when Phil was saying about how the kind of the play in the final third has changed a little bit. So it sounds like we can still expect the kind of well organised, well drilled back four with the solid base sitting in front of them of Scowen and Wing, kind of those kind of hard to beat kind of central midfielders. But it sounds like they might vary things up a little bit in the front line. How's Mehmeti getting on at Bristol? I can't pretend to know, because he was so good for that first kind of half of the season. I thought we actually played him pretty well at Adams Park. I don't remember him being overly influential on the game. I think he got subbed, if I remember rightly. So I don't remember him being amazing against us. But how's he getting on at Bristol?
I don't know what the numbers are, but I know they signed him, and it was like, oh, this guy looks great. He's that type of player, though, isn't he? Look kind of dribbly, tricky. So I don't think there's been any issue with the step up for him. I did disagree slightly with Phil, and look, he knows way more about Wycombe than I do, but surely, Seb, talismanic manager and the best player, surely it can't be the same difficulty level, can it?
Well, in theory, it shouldn't be. I mean, I don't know if people would call him talismanic, but obviously Martin Waghorn is sold, Mick McCarthy departs, and, we kind of fall apart. I guess when you've got a squad and a fan base and a coaching staff so kind of focused on playing one way, it can often take a lot more than, a couple of months to really, really turn that, or a few weeks in Bloomfield's case to really, really turn that round. He's going to need a few windows at least. He made a couple of tactical changes, but he's going to need at least a couple of windows to try and get his points across. But yeah, I was really worried. Like I said earlier, I was really worried we would finish third, they would finish sixth, and Ainsworth would school us. I don't have that fear now. If we were to finish third and they're sixth, I wouldn't have that same level of trepidation going into an away leg without Ainsworth in the dugout and having seen the Wycombe sides from previous years.
Do you agree with me that I always thought Wycombe at Adams Park was a completely different proposition to Wycombe can control you at Adams Park, can't they? And you have those. I was in the press box even when we won 4-1, and you're kind of halfway you're over the halfway line, and they just keep you in the corner for like, and it's like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You're like, how the hell do we get out of here? And it's slow with all the restarts, and then it goes straight back in the corner. And do you agree that they're much harder proposition? It's much harder, but a different proposition at Adams Park than they are, say, at Portman Road.
I think so, yeah, because they're also, it's a tight ground. Ainsworth on the touchline with his long hair and his shirt halfway unbuttoned kind of adds a bit more to the the narrative of the kind of bringing that atmosphere together. I remember when he had those comments in the post-match. I think he said that our entourage was the biggest he'd ever seen, and they had to give additional space in the corridor for all the kit and all the guys we brought with us. So they were kind of building that siege mentality of us versus them. And I've never actually been to Adams Park. It's not one that I've done, but I can imagine that it's like you say, before you know it, you've been 15 minutes, you've created nothing, you've not got out your half, the ball's been in play for 3 or 4 minutes of that time, and it just becomes a very, very long afternoon, which I guess Bloomfield will look to try and change. Like I say, I think he's done a bit of a tactical kind of tweak. They were very much a 3 at the back, weren't they, with Ainsworth? But certainly he kept the 3 for his first game against Shrewsbury, but since then he's gone to a 4-2-3-1, and that seems to be his settled kind of preferred formation now. They obviously find themselves just outside the playoffs. They're 2 points? 2 points off Peterborough in 6.
Which I find strange, because they've been inconsistent since Bloomfield's been in it. It shows maybe the little slip by Bolton and the bigger slip by Derby.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago on the pod, I remember saying I thought the top 6 was set. I thought it was done.
Andy Warren said it on our Telegram chat, didn't he?
Yeah, I remember saying it will stay as it is. The only decisions will be who kind of finishes in what space. I thought Peterborough were too far behind after all the tumultuous first half of the season. I didn't think Wycombe would close that gap. I thought it even less, obviously, when Ainsworth departed. But the likes of Derby and Bolton have kind of had a bit of a wobble, and that's allowed Peterborough to sneak in and Wycombe to be right on the coattails. I mean, Bloomfield's record isn't amazing, is it? He's managed 8 games so far, 2 wins, 3 draws, and 3 defeats. They don't come into this game on amazing
9 points in 8 games.
Yeah, they don't come into this on amazing form either, do they? Their away form, it's solid overall for the season, 27 points from 19 games, but their last 5 away is 2 wins, 2 defeats, and a draw. So they're not coming here with any kind of real oomph or momentum behind them. And I guess that's how it'll be for the rest of the season, as he tries to find out what he's got at his disposal, make some decisions on players moving into the summer window, and tries to maybe try and sort of impact his views and his philosophies in the remaining weeks of the season.
So that's Phil's face. Let me just try and bring up on the other screen the most recent 11 that you've already alluded to. If you're watching on YouTube, do hit the thumbs up button. We'll talk you through it if you're not, if you're listening after the fact. But I'll rattle through. I think you've kind of covered a fair bit of it. Strycek in goal is good and has a good save percentage. But again, we found this with Bart Białkowski, that if you protect a goalkeeper with a low block, often they excel, don't they? And there's always a little bit of a element of that. Farino and Tafazoli, absolutely gigantic centre backs. Jacobson is still there, and Mikey informs me that he won't want to go near Wes Burns on his own on the touchline.
They've got an injury, haven't they? Abita is the normal left back / left wing back. He's been out for about 6 weeks now, I think, or so. So Jacobson, I think Mikey was saying, is a centre half, isn't he? Playing out of position, 36 years old. All I can think about, do you remember when MK came to Portman Road in August and Dean Lewington was the left back because they changed to a back 4, and Wes Burns absolutely destroyed him? I'm kind of hoping we see a repeat of that kind of thing on the weekend. But the full backs, like you say, they do provide that low block. I mean, Jack Grimmer is the right back, only 1 assist from 35 appearances. This is not a full back that will look to bomb on. They're very much drilled in what they do. They kind of prevent that space in behind, stay organised, stay compact, and really look to suffocate the space to kind of choke teams, don't they?
I just remembered when Mick played a back 3 of Stephen Taylor, Christoph Berra and Luke Chambers. Chambers was obviously fine. Taylor only had to do the middle bit. Christoph Berra did not want to go anywhere near the touchline, bless him. As you've mentioned, Scowen and Wing double pivot was decent, isn't that, at League One level? Wheeler, TJ DeBar might be a new one from Gibraltar, I believe, but doing quite decent. Chem Campbell as well, on loan from Wolves. Hanlon up top, obviously, we've been scared of people like Sam Vokes before. But let's be honest, he came during the window. Was it? Did Phil say? I'm trying to think when. Maybe towards the tail end of the window. It's Ainsworth's squad, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, Bloomfield kind of, he came after the window closed. So this is Ainsworth's squad built in his mould with players who are probably so well drilled from, X number of pre-seasons under Ainsworth. They will still know exactly what they need to do. I mean, Vokes apparently is very, very close, apparently, according to the pre-match presser. So I wouldn't be that surprised if he makes an appearance. So Hanlon was the guy that scored against us.
Great goal,
Awful
when he kind of by us. Yeah.
It was, wasn't it? Out-muscled Humphreys. Burgess kind of commits himself very early. Hanlon rolls the ball home. And the one thing you don't want to do against the Wycombe side, obviously, is give them the first goal, because then you know exactly what you're going to have to face for the remainder of the game and try and break them down. I wouldn't be surprised if Vokes does come back in, given his physicality and his experience. He's got 6 goals so far for the season, and we kind of picked out Lewis Wing as one of the ones to watch with 8 goals and 4 assists from 37 appearances so far this season. He likes to get forward, he likes to drift right and kind of link up with the
20-yard shooter as well. Very good.
Yeah. He likes to link up with the right forward, who'll probably be Chem Campbell, the Garn loan from Wolves. And David Wheeler's a player who's pretty decent at this level as well. He can play anywhere across the three. He's kind of shunted out to the left because of Gareth McCleary's injury. He's due again. He's very, very close as well, Bloomfield said. So don't be surprised if he makes an appearance. Wheeler's doing a job out there on the left, but if he comes back in, then Wheeler will go back to the 10, and McCleary will get one of those wide options. Must note as well, Josh Scowen is the kind of the more defensively minded of the two. He loves a tackle, 3.6 tackles per game. Now, to put some context in that, Morsey only averages 2.2 and Luongo only manages 2.6. So look out on Friday. I'd imagine there'll be a moment when there's at least one of Morsey or Luongo going straight on him. That should be a good battle in the middle of the park.
Brilliant stuff. When I look back at the winning streak for a template, I'm probably looking at the Shrewsbury game for how similar in terms of an opponent. Would you agree with that? And I was going to ask you, what do you think the game looks like? Does it look like the Shrewsbury game?
I think so, yeah. 2 well-drilled side, from a Cottrell side, you know what you're going to get as well, with big centre-halves, well-oiled, well-drilled players. They lost 6-0 last weekend, didn't they, to Charlton?
All 7 of the big centre-halves, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, like you say, that's the most likely game. They're not going to come and try and take us on playing football. They'll be well organised at the back, well organised in midfield, try and hit us with a little bit of physicality up front if Vokes is fit, and a little bit of kind of quality from the central midfield position with Scowen and Wing. But the crucial thing in this game, I think I've said it for the past couple of weeks, score early, score first, and you suddenly put a lot of these issues to bed, don't you? We scored against Shrewsbury. Hurst got the goal. Was it midway through the first half? I think it was. And that straight away, that takes off all the pressure. The Wycombe's game plan will be the longer they can grind this out, keep it at 0-0, look to frustrate us, look to do all the little dark arts, all the tricks, keep the ball out of play as much as they can. The more they do that, it will feed into their hands. So just don't worry about it and take care of business. Score early, score first, and then hopefully we're in for another pretty comfortable afternoon.
We'll talk about how Seb expects us to line up after this word from our sponsors.
Innovation Labs is business hub and co-working space with strategic locations across Suffolk. Our aim is to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, business growth, and the development of an AI centre of excellence in Suffolk. Monthly hot desks are available from just £79. For more info, head to innovationlabsgroup.com or contact info@innovationlabsgroup.com. Innovation Labs, providing support for businesses across Suffolk. Locations in Stowmarket, Ipswich, Sudbury, Woodbridge, with more to follow.
So, Seb, we're at this point now where we've got this very settled 11, but it's the Easter double header. So you almost have to do the planning as, I suppose, the specific training would have. It's like a week run, I guess, from sort of, if you count the recovery on Tuesday next week, probably would have come in light on Monday. You almost have to count it as like a week's sort of worth of run. Let's put it to you this way: Walton, Clark, Wolford and Burgess Lee, Luongo, Morsey, Burns, Chaplin, Broadhead, Hurst. How similar and strategically, it's Cheltenham away on Monday, am I right?
Yes, Cheltenham on Monday, away.
Which,
they are decent at home. It's worth pointing out. They're not.
Yeah.
That's not a Forest Green or a gimme. That they are decent at home.
And you're on the road and you're that bit more tired. What are your thoughts on a sort of 11, a selection, a tweak?
Well, I think if we assume Davis is doubtful, because it was a hamstring, wasn't it? McKenna came out and said, so if there's any doubt there with a hamstring, you simply don't risk it, because the risk is too great. If you get it wrong and he pulls it and he's out for the rest of the season, that's a huge, huge blow. Greg Lee against a side like Wycombe, where you're probably going to be facing crosses, you're going to have to be sharp at set pieces. He's very, very good aerial, as we know, so I've got no issue if he stays in. He was really, really good. He was blowing a bit at the end towards the end against Derby, because it was his first start since Burnley away, I think. But
do you agree with me? Sorry to interrupt. If we don't see Greg Lee or Nathan Broadhead for game 1, we won't see them until Saturday week.
No, I think McKenna likes to keep minutes in people a little bit, doesn't he? I mean, Broadhead got clattered on the touchline by Collins, but he did play on Saturday and got subbed off a few minutes later. So I don't think he was that badly injured. I think what I would do, I would go strong. I'd go with what is now the established 11. Any doubts over Davis, don't risk it, and play Greg Lee, with the hope that at 60 minutes you're a couple of goals up, and then suddenly Broadhead, Burns, Ladapo, Hurst can all come off, and you bring on the likes of Harness, Edwards, or somebody, and Ladapo up front, with kind of an eye to the Monday game, where you maybe look to make a couple of changes just to get that bit of rest into people. Maybe Ladapo comes in away to Cheltenham, maybe Harness gets a game there. But for Wycombe at home, I'd be going strong. We've had pretty much a week. I know it's a Friday game and the Derby game was last Saturday, but it's pretty much a week between games. So that first 11 that's now established for me should be the ones to go with. And then if it's going well, you can make the subs, rest players, and then maybe look to give a couple of, not wholesale changes for Cheltenham, but a couple of players, maybe the likes of Ladapo in for Hurst, and maybe Harness in for somebody like Broadhead if you need to for the Cheltenham away game on the Monday.
We'll go specifically into our predictions in the predictions segment later on, but clean sheet streak, winning streak. What are your thoughts?
It has to end. Both things have to end sometime, obviously. I have, spoiler alert, I have gone for a clean sheet and a victory in the predictions. I think the run will be maintained. I was that impressed with us at Derby, the way we cope with things. I know it's going to be a very different game, because Derby were looking to kind of play a bit of football. They kind of had to win, but equally Wycombe, probably if they've got designs on 6th, do have to try and get something. A point for them would be a great result at Portman Road, but they have to try and keep in touch with the playoffs. And as we know, with back-to-back games so quick between Friday and Monday, things could look very different on Tuesday morning if they do have a couple of bad results and drop out of it. So the pressure isn't totally all on us. There is a little bit of pressure on them to try and get something to keep the touching distance of the playoffs. But I think the clean sheet run and the win will continue for this weekend. What do you think?
I was interested in what Phil said about winning streaks, because I've researched this in the Championship, so forgive me if anyone knows more in the League One thing, but a 5-game win streak is not uncommon. 6 is very good. When you get to 7, that will tend to be one of the best by any team in that league that season. And what I found is when it went to 8, this is not a hard and fast rule, teams that win 8 games in a row in a 46-game season tend to get promoted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Lumping 24 points onto your total that quickly. And then you mentioned Aston Villa doing 10 in a row. Like Burnley did 10 in a row in the Championship. Bosh, no one's going to catch them after that. So he's totally right that when you get to this point in the win streak, there's a reason why it doesn't ever seem to go too much further. I don't know, Manchester City win like 15 on the trot or something couple of years ago, but that's a freak show with one of the greatest managers of all time, or someone will go down as one of the greatest managers of all time. So I know what he means, and to go to the 8th straight victory would be, I'm not sitting here saying everyone who gets 8 straight wins gets promoted, but it's a thing in that, certainly in the Championship research. And yeah, when we go to the predictions, you'll see I think it might be on, to be honest. Shall we, Seb, hand off to you, and we will go to the predictions segment of the show. I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, let's go for it. So my usual kind of partner in crime isn't here this week, so I can't gloat too much. Last week wasn't that exciting. If you've got the results from last week to bring up, it wasn't a vintage week. We had a few kind of correct scorelines, but nothing that was exactly right. So host Rich, contributor me, and Telegram all got 4 points each. So there was no ground lost and no ground gained on last week. But that's in the past, and now we look at this week's game. We're only focusing on Good Friday's fixes. We're not looking at the Monday one yet. So if you've got the graphic to bring up for this week, we've very kindly had some contributions from Neil Wilmore from the Telegram group. He's provided the Telegram predictions. We won't focus on them all. We'll look at the ones that are directly going to kind of impact ourselves. We'll come to us last, and we'll do our thoughts on that as a summing up. But I guess Burton versus Barnsley away at Burton at the Pirelli is the first one on the list there. Now we've all gone for Barnsley wins. I've gone fairly comfortable, 2-0 to Barnsley. Neil from Telegram's gone 3-1. You've gone 1-2. So you think Burton will score, but ultimately Barnsley will take the points.
Burton make loads of chances, don't they? You know, they properly, they ping it in the box, they get men forward, the throw-ins going. So I think they can score, but I think they might score that goal when Barnsley have already scored twice.
Fair enough. Okay. Morecambe versus Plymouth. This is an interesting one. So Plymouth absolutely battered on the weekend. You were there at Wembley. Was it 4-0 in the end? It finished 4-0, was it? To Bolton? Yeah. So they are, well, in theory, they should be, proper low in terms of confidence. Away, they're nowhere near as good as they are at home park. I've gone for a Plymouth victory, 2-1. Telegram's gone for a 3-1, but you're the optimistic one. You think Plymouth might drop points at this one. 2-2 draw you've gone for.
I'm just slinging that grenade in there for my own entertainment. No, I spoke to a Plymouth fan on my vlog before the game, and I just said this throwaway line. I said, you know what, though? Sometimes that stadium each team's alive, and it bloody ate Plymouth alive. I tell you, they were awful, Seb. Bolton were very good, but when you see a team and they're just in shock, they go 2 down in 10 minutes, and they absolutely froze up. Obviously, it's an optimistic prediction, which is probably heart over head. But what you said about Plymouth, you can say the reverse for Morecambe, who flipped much better. I think they're the worst away team in the league, but had a nice little purple patch at home. Talked about Shaw and Crowley and Jensen Weir, the midfield three. They make chances. There's the Derek Adams factor as well. They need to score the first goal, and we're in COD psychology mode. Who knows what that might do to Plymouth? But optimism abounds there.
It would be amazing if you're if you're correct. And talking of sides in kind of awful runs of form, we'll just end up with Wednesday before we go to our results. So they're away at Oxford, not an easy place to go, as we know, sometimes weather dependent. They've taken, 3 points from the last 15, 3 points from the last 5 games. I don't think many of us predicted that they would drop points at home to Lincoln last week. We kind of thought that would be the game that gets them back on the sort of the run they need to close in on the title. Now, you and me have gone for Wednesday wins by 1 goal. Telegram, Neil's gone for a 1-1 draw. That would be absolutely brilliant. Christ, if your prediction comes true for Morecambe Plymouth, and that's 2 drop points, and then Wednesday drop 2 points at Oxford and we win, we're going to be absolutely laughing, aren't we? So what's your thoughts? You've gone for a narrow 1-0 Wednesday, the default scoreline that's going to get them back to just grinding out results.
Yeah, I think there's some... look, the Forest Green one, you can't explain that away. Forest Green were better than Sheffield Wednesday and deserved to win. I was at the Wednesday Barnsley game, and that was, honestly, I certainly know it's 4-2, but was one of those games where Barnsley literally scored their first 2 shots. Wednesday, fight back, 2-2. Darren Moore then had nothing on the bench. If he had Kieran McKenna's bench then, I think they would have won that game. They'd have come back from 2 down and actually gone on to win it. It settles, and then Barnsley get a second wind, and they go and win. Cheltenham, okay, they got themselves in a tiz. They fought back. Lincoln, I actually disagree with you, Seb. I thought Lincoln would be one where you could see the classic Mark Kennedy sit behind the ball, 1-1 draw come in. So I was probably more surprised by the Cheltenham one. But when you look at the numbers, that kind of plays into what you were saying. It was 25 odd shots or something. I always worry when a manager is changing his goalkeeper, though, and he's gone back to... I always think that's a bit of a Hail Mary. That's a bit of a... I don't quite know what to do here, so I'm gonna make this big call, and I'm switching out the goalkeeper. We saw Paul Hurst in fall on his sword. Miserably trying that.
Lambert did it in the first year down. Do you remember he kept chopping and changing between Holy and Norris all the time as well? So, but then Stockdale kind of he was at fault, wasn't he? Really, for the Lincoln equaliser, he pushed it back into play. So maybe they go back to Dawson again this weekend.
Oh, there you go.
Imagine?
Now he's really done. What I will say is the excellent George Ellick, who is an Oxford fan, did seem to suggest that Liam Manning is not going all MK, and they were quite pragmatic against Peterborough, who they drew against. So it might be a very low margin game. If it's a low margin game and it goes to form and quality, Sheffield Wednesday will win it by 1 goal, as both you and I have suggested. But, you know, if it's really in their heads, and all the Wednesday fans I'm talking to on YouTube, oh, Ben, we always bottle it. This is typical Wednesday. This is just like us to do this. So I think they'll be back. They'll be back at it. And I think Patterson's back training. I think Wilkes is nearly ready.
Yeah.
It's Byers and Windass that we're waiting for, isn't it?
They're the big two, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So was that a similar angle you were taking?
That's what. Yeah. I mean, I tend to think that like we were speaking about, good wins kind of, can't last forever. Equally, bad runs can't last forever. They're a reason they are up there. It might do them a favour being away from Hillsborough this weekend, because the crowd there were not happy, were they, in that Lincoln game? So it might do a bit of a favour being away this weekend. And I just think at some point they will get themselves back on form. And whilst Oxford isn't the easiest place to go, hopefully I'm proved wrong. I just think they'll get back on track with that one. And that brings us to us to wrap up with. So it's a clean sweep across the board. You've gone 1-0.
No.
I've got 2-0. Telegram Neil's gone 3-0. So we all think both the winning run and the clean sheets are going to maintain and go for another week or so. 1-0 you've predicted. Do you think that'll be a nervy 1-0 or
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
An oft-quoted game on this podcast is Ipswich versus Crystal Palace at the end of the 99-2000 season, where nothing in the game whatsoever, and just everyone's high on the team, the stadium's full, expectations are high, but it can start to get nervy at this time.
Yeah.
Look, don't get me wrong. I hope if we're in nervy game mode that, it's not late deflected equalisers flying in off someone's backside in the 96th minute, and it is scraping 1-0 wins. You almost kind of want us to play badly and win, at some point, just to get it out of the way. Because would you agree, all the wins in the streak have been okay? Maybe things went for us against Derby, didn't they, in the context of the timeline of that game? But it was hardly oh God, we were lucky there. It was okay, 50-50 on a disallowed goal maybe, and that could have swung things, but we played well otherwise. But I wonder whether it's a nervy one, Seb.
Well, even as long as we get the 3 points, it doesn't matter. I guess the important thing is it's a sellout already, isn't it? We must thank Wycombe for their contribution. I think 200 Wycombe tickets have been sold, haven't they? So you're going to have
really?
You can have 28,800 Ipswich fans and 200 Wycombe fans there. So I guess the important thing,
that can add to the nerves sometimes.
It can do.
No
like you say, you referenced that Crystal Palace game. I remember Stockport the year before when Magilton scored in the pouring rain and the nerves were shot. All we had to do was somehow get a victory. It didn't matter how we got it. We just had to get over the line, didn't we? So it might be one like that. I think the way we're playing, I think it will be a bit more comfortable, and I'll save your scrappy 1-0, get the points and get out of town for Barnsley or Peterborough away. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Those games will be. I don't worry about those games. Look, there'll be nervy, anxious occasions, but there'll be good games, won't there? It'll be the two teams. Barnsley will think they can beat Ipswich. Ipswich will think they can beat Barnsley. Peterborough will think they can beat Ipswich. That will be whereas Wycombe might be, like you said earlier in the show, can we get this crowd moaning? Can we shut them up? Can we get them booing us on our throw-ins? Let's make this an anxious atmosphere, let's just say. So that's kind of where similar goals, weren't they? David Johnson, low one in the corner, Jim Magilton,
Wayne Brown, long ball forward, I think, and the big players step up on big occasions, Ben. So Johnson takes it down and smashes it home, and then Magilton the year before they'd Ashley Cole. Do you remember Ashley Cole was the Palace left back on loan from
I had
Arsenal.
A moment in that game where I looked in the programme and actually went, who's this guy? He's on loan from Arsenal. Okay, I get it now. He's really good, isn't he? Yeah.
He'll probably do all right in his career, and how many Premier League, FA Cups, and Champions Leagues later? But then the one before with pouring rain, Magilton kind of smashed one side. I think he side-footed it from distance, and again, all we had to do was win. But there were definite nerves that night because obviously the importance of it. I guess we might have to put up with those kind of games later on in the season, but hopefully we'll come out on the right side.
Seb, I'll go back to my comments at the top of the show. Put up with it. I'm bloody loving it. Isn't it great to be in this, incredible, whatever happens, we have to kind of preface saying it. Isn't it great to be that type of drama?
Rather than
frankly in the late 90s, and if we've got any younger listeners who aren't used to this, where literally every game that isn't won is all. That's it. Do you remember going to West Brom and Matt Holland slipping and scoring? But it was 1-1 and we dropped points, and it was oh god, here we go to Bradford drawing at home to Oxford. Oh god, we're in. Oh, I'm going to lose to Birmingham. Away we, away we go. But isn't it great to have this nervous energy?
Great to be involved. We should enjoy it. I think Mikey said it about 4 or 5 months ago. This is what you want to go to football for, isn't it? For these kind of big games that matter at the end of the season. There's something about football in the spring that I love, both evening games and the weekend. The weather's slightly nicer. The games tend to have a lot riding on them. So there's that natural air of excitement in the pub beforehand, in the town on the walk down. And it's great to be involved still, rather than working out, are we going to finish 9th, 10th, or 11th this season, and who are we going to release it in the summer to try and make a difference next year?
In the pub before the game, Seb. Surely you can be more specific than that.
Absolutely. There is only one pre-match pub destination in Ipswich on Friday, and any day, to be honest. Of course, we are brought to you by our great friends at the Greyhound pub. I'll be there. Rich will be there. Dave normally pops along. I don't think Craig's there this week. I think he's away in the States. But come along and you'll see some of the Blue Monday team there, no doubt, in the pods. Get yourself down there. They've got a new burger, the George Hurst burger. They haven't revealed what's in it yet. I don't know what's going to be in it, but the George Hurst burger apparently is going to make its debut. Open at the normal time of, I think it's 11 or 11:30. Get yourself down there and come and say hello if you see us.
Get your gums around George Hurst. I won't say meat.
I don't know what it will be. I can't work out what it would be. Maybe it'll take a while to get going, and then it will kind of really look to kick off.
But big name burger, big reputation,
Yeah.
And why don't you join us on Telegram? We had the inaugural Blue Monday Telegram curry the other day, which is absolutely tremendous. We all went to a lovely Indian restaurant in the centre of Ipswich Thursday night, which is a Telegram exclusive there. You can get a 2-week free trial. If you were to do that right now, you would see today's Telegram exclusive yesterday, I think possibly we're recording on Wednesday, whatever day this ends up going out, with Graham Mack of BBC Radio Suffolk. All the questions come from the Telegram subscribers, none of our nonsense. You set the tone. He answers. We had Ali Maxwell from Not the Top 20, Sam Parkin. We had Matt Holland as well, all exclusively to Telegram. And for absolutely free, you can come and get a 2-week trial there. We are behind a paywall after that, but we hope that you will think that the little community there that we've fostered and what we give away every week for free is worth a little subscription fee. Now, best laid plans, Seb. Easter is hard when you're trying to run a podcast.
Yes,
we're all over the place. I'm at ITV double days, so I'm not around. We've got people coming from all and sundry across. So we're expecting Dave and Rich to be doing the Flagship on Friday, and it's a double
Friday
Flagship. Night. Hopefully on Monday it will be Craig joining Dave and Rich as well. And the plan is, as Seb says, you can come and join both of those guys. Both of those shows live over on YouTube. If you are a podcast, old school audio person who listens in the car or on a walk or in the gym or whatever, great. We would encourage, do get involved over on YouTube and come and join in the debate, join in the comments there. And there's nothing like live, is there, Seb? We love it.
Very much so, yeah. And also keep your eyes out. We've got a little mini pre-match, which we'll probably record on Saturday for a Sunday morning release. A mini version of the show focusing on Cheltenham. That will go out with me and Rich. We'll work out when we're going to record that. But I'd imagine a Saturday record for a Sunday kind of teaser one before the main event on the Monday. And Rich asked me to mention as well, he's on Life's a Pitch.
Is that Mark Murphy's last Life's a Pitch?
I think so, yeah.
Are they announcing that Rich is taking over from Mark Murphy?
The scenes, can you imagine the scenes?
The limbs everywhere.
So yeah, he's on there. He's on there on Saturday morning. So make sure you tune in to hear Rich on that.
Brilliant stuff. So really enjoyed it. Big thanks to Phil Catchpole. If you do want to have an interesting experience, check out the Wycombe commentary. That will be Phil. Can you still do that on iFollow?
Presumably, I think you can change the feed, can't you? Change home or away. So
yeah, there you go. So if you watch after the fact on iFollow. But guys, loving your support at the moment. Podcast numbers, as you can imagine, fantastic. We really do appreciate it. We're loving it. And last word from you, Seb, on the streak, possibly continuing.
Of course, it's going to continue. Yeah, it'll be 9 clean sheets on the bounce, 8 wins on the bounce, 3 more points in the bag going into the final 7. Come on, you Blues.
Wise man say 8-game winning streak equals